Have you ever experienced a moment when life suddenly felt perfectly aligned? Not because everything was carefully planned, but because events seemed to fall into place almost effortlessly. You meet the right person at exactly the right time. An unexpected opportunity appears just when you are beginning to question your direction. Or sometimes, it happens in a much quieter way. You write down a thought, a short message, or even just a simple sentence in your mind, and soon after you encounter a book, a project, or a conversation carrying almost the exact same idea, as if something you had just thought was already moving through the world around you. Moments like these feel strangely meaningful, not dramatic, not supernatural, just deeply aligned. And they raise an interesting question. Are these moments simply random events that happen to occur together? Or could there be deeper patterns quietly shaping the way events unfold in our lives? Because sometimes life does not feel chaotic at all. Sometimes it feels as if the pieces of a much larger puzzle are slowly falling into place. Moments of alignment can appear in many different forms. Sometimes they arrive as a series of small coincidences. A conversation leads to an unexpected idea. That idea leads to a new opportunity. And suddenly several events begin connecting in ways that feel almost too precise to be random. At other times, the change happens more internally. Your thoughts become clearer. Your decisions feel more certain. And life seems to respond in subtle but meaningful ways. Many people describe these experiences as moments when everything simply feels aligned. But what does that actually mean? Is life somehow guiding these events together? Or could it be that when our attention, intentions, and awareness begin moving in the same direction, we simply become more aware of patterns that were always unfolding around us? Throughout history, human beings have searched for meaning in moments like these. When something unexpected happens at exactly the right time, we naturally ask a deeper question. Why did this happen now? The human mind is remarkably sensitive to patterns. We constantly connect events, ideas, and experiences in order to understand the world around us. This ability helped our ancestors survive. Recognizing patterns meant recognizing danger, recognizing opportunity, recognizing when something important might be about to happen. But this same ability also shapes the way we experience life today. When several events seem to align perfectly, our minds begin to form a story, a meeting that leads to a new opportunity, an idea that appears just when we need direction, a conversation that suddenly changes the course of a decision. Experiences like these can create the feeling that life itself is somehow responding to us. And this is exactly what fascinated the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. He believed that certain coincidences carry a sense of meaning that feels different from ordinary chance. Jung called these moments synchronicity, events that appear unrelated on the surface, yet seem connected through meaning. Moments when the outer events of life appear to mirror something happening inside us. A realization, a decision, a turning point. When these inner and outer events begin to coincide, life can suddenly feel as if everything is moving in the same direction, as if the pieces of a much larger puzzle are quietly falling into place. One possible explanation for these moments of alignment lies in the way our inner state shapes how we experience the world. Most of the time, our attention is scattered. Our thoughts move in many directions at once. Part of the mind worries about the future. Another part replays the past. And within that constant mental noise, it becomes difficult to notice how events around us are actually unfolding. But sometimes something changes. Our thoughts become clearer. Our attention becomes more focused. Our intentions begin moving in a single direction. And when that happens, our perception of the world begins to shift. We start noticing connections that previously went unnoticed. Opportunities that once seemed invisible suddenly become obvious. Conversations begin leading somewhere meaningful. Decisions start feeling more natural. Instead of forcing life forward, events begin unfolding with a certain rhythm. Psychologists have observed a similar experience in what is known as the flow state. This concept was studied extensively by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow describes a mental state in which a person becomes deeply immersed in what they are doing. In that state, attention becomes fully focused. Action and awareness begin to merge. Time itself can feel different. Thinking and acting begin to move almost effortlessly. When people experience flow, they often describe a sense that everything is working together. Their mind, their actions, their environment. Instead of tension between thoughts and decisions, there is a sense of inner clarity. And this raises an interesting possibility. When our inner state becomes clear and focused, could our experience of the world begin organizing itself in similar ways? When our intentions become clear, our attention sharpens. When attention sharpens, we begin noticing opportunities. And when we notice opportunities, our actions naturally begin following new paths. From the outside, it may appear that events suddenly started aligning. But in many cases, what has truly changed is the relationship between our inner awareness and the world around us. Another way to think about this comes from the idea of resonance. In many natural systems, when different elements begin moving in harmony, the entire system becomes synchronized. We see this in music when instruments follow the same rhythm. We see it in physics when waves move in phase with one another. And something similar may also happen within human experience. Our thoughts, emotions, and intentions are all forms of activity within the brain and nervous system. When these internal processes begin moving in the same direction, our inner state becomes more balanced and integrated. Some perspectives describe this as a form of alignment, a moment when our attention, emotions, and intentions resonate with the patterns unfolding around us. And when that inner alignment appears, the events of life can sometimes begin to feel as if they are unfolding with a quiet sense of timing, as if different parts of the same story are finally moving together. Moments of alignment often appear in surprisingly simple ways. Sometimes it begins with meeting the right person at exactly the right time. A conversation that lasts only a few minutes suddenly changes the direction of your thinking. An idea is shared. A new perspective appears, and that brief encounter quietly opens a path that did not exist before. At other times, alignment unfolds through a sequence of small events. You begin exploring a new interest. Soon after, you come across a book on that exact subject. A few days later, someone introduces you to a person working in the same field. One small event leads to another, and gradually it begins to feel as if life itself is guiding you toward a particular direction. Alignment can also appear in much quieter ways. Sometimes it begins with a simple thought. You write a message, a short reflection, or even just a sentence that forms silently in your mind. And not long afterward, you encounter something in the world that reflects the very same idea. Perhaps you see a project, a conversation, or a piece of writing carrying almost the exact same message. The coincidence feels strangely meaningful, as if the thought you just had was already moving through the world around you. There are also moments when alignment appears during important life decisions. You may spend weeks questioning a particular path, unsure which direction to take. And then suddenly, a series of small confirmations begins to appear. A conversation offers clarity. An unexpected opportunity opens a new possibility. A piece of information arrives at exactly the right moment. Individually, each event may seem ordinary, but together, they begin forming a pattern that feels too precise to ignore. Many people describe these experiences as moments when life begins to flow. Decisions feel easier. Events unfold more naturally. Instead of forcing outcomes, actions and opportunities seem to move in the same direction. It is during these moments that people often say something interesting. They say that life suddenly felt perfectly aligned. But perhaps what we are really experiencing in those moments is not the world changing around us. Perhaps what is changing is our relationship with the world itself. When our thoughts, intentions, and attention begin moving in the same direction, the patterns of life that once seemed invisible can suddenly become clear. And when that clarity appears, the events of life can feel as if they are unfolding with a quiet sense of timing, as if different parts of a much larger story are finally beginning to move together. Moments like these can be interpreted in many different ways. Some people see them as simple coincidences. Others feel that something deeper may be unfolding beneath the surface of everyday life. Science usually approaches experiences like this with caution. The human mind is remarkably skilled at recognizing patterns. We constantly connect events. We search for meaning. And sometimes we may interpret ordinary coincidences as something more significant than they truly are. But even when we acknowledge this, the experience of alignment itself remains fascinating. Because these moments often appear when something inside us has already begun to shift. A new understanding, a clearer intention, a decision that feels more honest than the ones before. When that inner clarity appears, our attention begins to change. We start noticing opportunities we might have ignored before. We hear conversations differently. We recognize possibilities that once seemed invisible. In other words, when our inner world becomes clearer, our experience of the outer world begins to shift as well. Life may not suddenly become easier, but it can begin to feel more meaningful, more connected, more responsive. Moments of alignment may not mean that the universe is arranging events specifically for us, but they may reveal something equally interesting. That human awareness is deeply connected to the patterns we perceive in the world around us. And when our thoughts, attention, and intentions begin moving in the same direction, our experience of life can begin to feel less chaotic and more like a story that is slowly unfolding. Perhaps these moments of alignment are not rare miracles. Perhaps they are quiet reminders. Reminders that when our inner state becomes clear enough, the patterns of life that were always there begin to reveal themselves. So the next time you experience one of these moments, when the right conversation appears at exactly the right time, when an idea arrives just as you were searching for direction, or when a series of small events suddenly begins to fall into place, pause for a moment. Not to assume that something mysterious has happened, but simply to notice how life sometimes unfolds in quietly meaningful ways. Because our experience of the world is shaped not only by what happens around us, but also by the state of our awareness. When our thoughts become clearer, our attention sharpens. And when our attention sharpens, we begin to notice possibilities that once seemed invisible. Suddenly, life can feel less like random chaos and more like a story gradually revealing its direction. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the Healing Galaxy so our energy field can continue to grow and expand. Thank you for being here and have a peaceful day.